Hey all, it's Matt, your average gamer, and for this video we're going to be going over my top 6 overpowered builds with a complete item guide to help you find everything you need. These are my top 6 to go into DLC, and we'll be doing some prep and answering questions. And then the questions we're going to be answering are what's mandatory for DLC, because there's a couple mandatory things you need to do, some reminders as well, and then kind of one build of each type that I picked for these top 6, so there's something for everybody. This is undoubtedly one of the biggest videos I've ever done for Elden Ring. By the way, the stuff that's longer, the bigger 3 quest lines, Melissan's quest line, Alexander's quest line, as well as the Magic Scorpion are all linked below. Every other talisman for these builds I'm going to be showing you how to get. So after each build, I'm going to show you how to get the basics for each one, and then later in the video there's going to be a talisman guide, a tier guide, and a buff guide, all in alphabetical order so you can find exactly what you need for each build. And here we go. This is going to be my top 6 overpowered and reliable builds to take into DLC with a complete item guide and one of the most thorough videos I've ever done on my channel. And of course later in the video we'll be doing Be Ready for DLC with DLC prep and a few mandatory things you need to do. Alright, I can't wait to get into this one. We're going to start the builds here soon, and the first one up for strength build, we're going to go at number 6 with Lion's Claw, one of the most reliable strength builds that does a ton of poise damage and a lot of physical damage. If there's ever a build on this list that I could say is reliable from literally the start of the game all the way through the end game, Lion's Claw is just that. Doing a ton of poise damage, around 40 on each hit, doing massive physical damage, and as a whole being a very good damage type across the board, it's excellent. This is a strength build that truly shines, and one that I honestly can say, to this time, from the time the game started, Lion's Claw was actually my second run through Elden Ring, up until now, it has remained consistently good, still to this day, 2 years after launch. It's a poise-breaking machine, and physical damage as a whole is a great damage type in Elden Ring because you don't have to worry about splitting damage types or having any of that calculated. Instead, you can just hit stuff hard with the literal definition of a bonk build. And this is one of the builds I'm considering taking into DLC because it's so reliable and easy to use, and if poise has relatively the same existence it does in the base game, then Lion's Claw could end up being a very broken build for Elden Ring's DLC. I can't even think of a better strength build. It's really great how good this is. We have the Guts Greatsword and heavy affinity with Lion's Claw, any seal for buffs. We had 51 poise, Shard of Alexander, Ritual Sword, Talisman, Ritual Shield, Talisman, Erdtree's favorite +2. Then we have the Greenburst Crystal tier, Faith tier. By the way, the Ritual Sword and Shield Talisman combo well together. It gives you extra defense and attack when you're at full HP. Let's jump into stats for this one. We have 60 Vigor, 99 Strength when we two-hand it, 25 Faith with the Faith tier. And that will allow us to do Golden Vow and Flame Grant Me Strength for some extra physical damage. This really is truly a reliable and very powerful build. And where to get the basics. For the basics, Guts Greatsword is located in Caelid at this carriage. You will have to fight some dogs that are around the carriage. You can actually get this very early game along with Lion's Claw, and there it is on the map there in Caelid. Not too hard to get. You can get this basically from the start of the game. And the Ash of War Lion's Claw is at Fort Gale or Fort Goal, however you say it. It's to the right of Rotview Balcony. You can't miss the fort. You have to take on the Lion Guardian that's inside the fort. He will drop the Ash of War Lion's Claw, a phenomenal Ash of War, and one definitely you should have before DLC. There it is on the map there in Caelid. At number 5, we have a tie, but first up is Double Slash. Double Slash is one of the most reliable builds as well, doing a ton of physical damage on top of a good amount of bleed in keen affinity at either the starting katana or, in my case, I like the Nagakiba for the extra reach. Now, that extra reach that you get from the Nagakiba will kind of feel like the old Rivers of Blood. Now, the Rivers of Blood has been nerfed like crazy, and a keen Nagakiba or starting katana with Bloodflame Blade will beat it. It'll get around the same bleed build up and a lot more physical damage. By the way, all footage is New Game +7. We are currently on Journey 33, going to be going into Journey 34 in the next one. This character has been used a lot on my channel, and I really love the challenge of New Game +7. It's been a ton of fun. Another thing I'm going to mention later in this video, comment below if you want to see a full guide to the bell bearings, all the basic stuff that you need before DLC. If you just want one whole big guide that shows you how to get everything you need before DLC, because this is basically build based, a separate one for items, comment that below if that's something you'd be interested in. Yeah, I know some people that would help out a lot. They don't know where to get all the items, and there are certain places where it's easy to find the items and everything, but maybe one big guide can help for like a major prep for DLC, and that'll be all the non-build related stuff. Let's jump into equipment here. For equipment, we have the Nagakiba with Bloodflame Blade and Double Slash. Any seal will do, since we're using it for buffs. The White Mass, Shard of Alexander, Lord of Blood's Exultation, Millicent's Prosthesis, Rottenwing Sword Insignia. Then we have the Thorny Tear, Faith Tear. We're using Sleeping Pots on the Godskin duo. Let's jump into stats for this build. And this is dexterity based, so we have 60 vigor, 23 mind, 27 endurance, 16 strength, 75 dexterity with Millicent's Prosthesis, 25 faith with the Faith Tear, so we can use Golden Vow, Flame Grant Me Strength, and of course, Bloodflame Blade. And where to get the Nagakiba? Well, later in the game, this is where it'll appear. If you want to get it early game, although it could mess up a minor quest line, you can go up the ravine to meet Hunter Yura there, and you can actually kill him, he'll drop it, but this is where you get it if you're later in the game by the Dragon Burnt Ruins. Another one you can get early game, and Double Slash is another thing you can also get early game. That's in Caelid, and that's going to be on the top of one of these branches above the buildings. There's a Teardrop Scarab, Hill Drop Double Slash, an awesome Ash of War, and a very powerful one. And tied at number 5 is one that I have been using a lot lately, and that's Spinning Strikes. I've realized Spinning Strikes is actually an incredible Ash of War and can get you a ridiculous amount of damage and bleed buildup. After practicing with multiple weapons, I found that the Naginata, if you're running a dex build, is basically perfect for Spinning Strikes. It gives you a good amount of AR, a good amount of bleed buildup, around I believe 90 bleed or so, and a lot of damage too. You're going to see on the Fire Giant here, 64,000 HP on New Game +7, and is able to absolutely annihilate his first phase on the ankle there, building up around 20,000 damage or so. That was insane. When Spinning Strikes gets going, the damage build-up, you're going to see the successive attack damage is great, and then the amount of bleed procs you get is truly incredible too. You could actually go for a Blood Affinity weapon with Spinning Strikes, that works well also, but overall this is a very powerful Ash. Yeah, this is one that, again, I'm just liking so much more and more every time I use it. I'm realizing how stupid and ridiculous Spinning Strike is with Bloodflame Blade. It truly is incredible. And these are two items, once again, you can get very early in Elden Ring, and you can build around it. Give yourself Bloodflame Blade by the time you get to the lakes, or run up and grab that. Get the Naginata, get Spinning Strikes, and the amount of bleed buildup and damage you get is going to carry you through the game. In a second here, we're going to go over equipment stats, everything you need to know. We have the Naginata in Keen Affinity with Spinning Strikes, any seal for buffs. We have the White Mass, we hit 51 poise. We have the Shard of Alexander, we have Lord of Blood's Exultation, Millicent's Prosthesis, Rottenwing Sword Insignia. Then we have the Thorny Tear, Faith Tear. Let's jump into stats for this build. And then we're going to go over stats, which are going to be the same exact stats as Double Slash, so you can use either one of these builds. Same setups too. 60 Vigor, 23 Mind, 27 Endurance, 75 Dexterity with Millicent's Prosthesis. And we have 25 Faith with the Faith Tier. Our base Faith is 15. That'll allow us to use Golden Vow, Flame Grant Me Strength, and Bloodflame Blade. As you can see on the Fire Giant here, the damage is incredible. I definitely recommend trying out Spinning Strikes with Bloodflame Blade. And where to get the Naginata, another one you can get early at Gale Tunnel in Caelid. You can follow me on screen from you drop down from the Caelid side section, and we're going to go into a room that has a bunch of land octopi to get the Naginata. And this is another one that not only can you grab this early, you should probably grab this if you're a dexterity build to add a little bit more versatility. Have the starting katana, Nagakiba, or both, and then grab the Naginata too. A really cool weapon to try out. You'll get around 600, maybe 600 and something AR with the stats we have. Overall though, you throw Spinning Strikes on that and you got a solid dexterity build that adds a little bit more versatility and something different you could do from Double Slash. It's definitely one you should try. Now, where to get Spinning Strikes? Well, you have a couple options here. You could do this minor quest line. Keep in mind, by the way, if you do it the way I'm doing it, you can grab the item from him wherever he dies. It doesn't matter where he dies. You can come back and get the quest item, but follow me if you want to grab this early. And this is at Castle Morn in the Weeping Peninsula, not far into the game. Another one, again, getting this early. You can grab this and turn this into a powerful build very early. I'm going to end up killing him and not doing the minor quest line, side quest line, and you can get the item to drop here. If you don't choose this route and you choose the other route of doing the small side quest line, that honestly, in my opinion, really isn't that worth it, because you can go back to his dead body and grab the item anyway. He will invade in Liurnia of the Lakes at the Artist's Shack, and you can grab Spinning Strikes there. But if you want to grab it early, there it is on the map there in the Weeping Peninsula. Alright, now that we got the tie over with, at number 4 we have Bloodhound's Fang, the best quality weapon in all of Elden Ring. Although it does lean dexterity, you get some decent points from strength too, and it is an extremely good quality weapon compared to some of the other quality weapons in the game, doing a lot of poise damage, bleed build up, and damage in general. Yeah, many Elden Ring players know about Bloodhound's Fang. Why? Because it could literally carry you from the beginning of the game to the end. One of the most reliable weapons in the game. It does good damage, good poise damage, and good bleed. This is a weapon that will pretty much never let you down. Yeah, Bloodhound's Fang, even on New Game Plus 7, where everything has around 30% more poise, the Ash of War, Bloodhound's Finesse, is still able to break the majority of bosses, which is absolutely incredible on New Game Plus 7. And that was the tougher Draconic Tree Sentinel. A lot of people have difficulty with him. I don't find him that difficult once you get used to his moveset, but yeah, he has some pretty stout resistances overall. In a second, we're going to go over equipment, stats, everything you need to know for this awesome build. For equipment, we have Bloodhound's Fang plus 10. We have the Dragon Communion seal for buffs, but any seal works. We have the White Mass, Shard of Alexander, Ritual Swords Talisman, Lord of Blood's Exultation, Ritual Shield Talisman. Then we have the Greenburst Crystal Tier, Faith Tier. Let's talk about stats. And for stats here, we have 60 Vigor, 21 Mind, 30 Endurance, 30 Strength, but with a 1.5 times bonus, we have 45, 55 Dexterity, 25 Faith with the Faith Tier. And of course, we're going to be using Golden Vow, which is 15% more attack and defense, Flame Grant Me Strength for 20% more fire and physical damage, and then we're using Bloodflame Blade for extra bleed. In this weapon, you can get in Limgrave literally at the start of the game. Not even a tough boss fight. Of course, for me, I'm late game, so this is going to be a really easy boss fight. I think he's just 2 hits, but even early game, he's not too bad to take on, and he will drop Bloodhound's Fang. Yeah, this boss isn't even too bad early in the game. You could take him on, or you can go to Caelid, get some runes there, farm the dragon, do whatever you need to do, come back, and then take on this boss. Get Bloodhound's Fang to drop, and if you can get Bloodflame Blade in the lakes, you'll end up with an incredible early game build. Yeah, just 2 uses of the Blasphemous Blade there. That's definitely a weapon that can carry you too. But yeah, Bloodhound's Fang, there it is in Limgrave. Definitely something you want to check out if you haven't. At number 3, we have the godlike weapon that is the Blasphemous Blade. One of the most reliable weapons in Elden Ring, and has the versatility of a Faith build since the Ash of War scales entirely with your Faith stat. This is a weapon you cannot go wrong with. The Blasphemous Blade could absolutely be fantastic for mobs in the DLC. A lot of Souls games have a ton of difficult mobs that do a lot of damage, and they typically scale late game too, so the Blasphemous Blade could be something that you want to have on hand. Keep in mind too that Faith has 3 different damage types, particularly elemental damage types. We're talking about fire, holy, and lightning damage. A lot of versatility to take into DLC. May end up being the build as a whole that I take into DLC myself. And if you want to do lightning damage, you can grab the Lightning Tear and Lightning Scorpion Charm. If you want to do holy damage, you can grab the Sacred Scorpion Charm and the Holy Tear, and you can run pretty much the identical stats that you would use for the Blasphemous Blade. So the amount of versatility that Faith has is truly incredible, and that's why I'm considering it for DLC. Let me know, by the way, in the comments section what build you're considering taking into DLC, and if one of these builds is something that you're going to consider taking in, because it's going to be a challenge, that's for sure. Souls DLCs are typically harder than the base game too, so you have to consider that, how hard they are to begin with. And then this new DLC in Shadow of the Erdtree has a combat mechanic that's kind of going to weaken us, and we're going to have to complete things and beat some bosses before we get to the end of the DLC to kind of power up along the way. I know some of you that didn't know that yet is probably like, what are you talking about? Well, check out the combat mechanics. If you get a chance to look up what that's like for Shadow of the Erdtree, it's going to be a lot like Sekiro in the way that the combat mechanics work there, how you have to power up. Let's jump into equipment. For massive fire damage and healing, we have the Blasphemous Blade plus 10, we have the Erdtree Seal, we hit 51 poised, Fire Scorpion Charm, Shard of Alexander, Ritual Shield Talisman, Ritual Swords Talisman. And then for our tier, we have the Flame Tier, I call it the Fire Tier, Faith Tier. Let's jump into stats for this build. And for stats, we have 60 Vigor, 21 Mind, 25 Endurance. We have 20 Strength, so you can use the Jellyfish Shield and some incantations. We have 80 Faith with the Faith tier, which gives you a lot of versatility, and we're using Golden Vow and Howl of Shabriri for this build. And where do you get the Blasphemous Blade? Well, the quickest location is through the Dungeon of Rhea Lucaria. Follow me on screen, exactly what I do. We're going to have to get eaten at the bottom of this thing to transport us and kind of get to the Blasphemous Blade the quickest way possible, and the earliest way possible. Now, there's a couple other ways to get there, but this is probably the quickest one, taking literally just a few minutes once you have Schoolhouse Classroom Site of Grace at Rhea Lucaria. This is really easy to follow. If you follow me directly, you can net yourself the Blasphemous Blade. By the way, quick note, if you're not subbed to my channel yet, now's the time to sub before DLC. You're not going to want to miss out. Also, be sure to join the Discord. It's an awesome growing community. We have over 700 people in there. It's been incredible, and everybody's pretty much there to help. It's been pretty active lately, too. Yeah, I love that it's picked up and become more active and stuff, and I know we're getting into DLC and the hype's there, and it's a little bit slow right now as far as everything's going on because everybody's just kind of catching up and waiting for that big moment with DLC, but I believe DLC it's not going to be a letdown at all. They always deliver. FromSoftware is excellent. It's going to be an incredible expansion for Elden Ring. And once you get down here, by the way, don't go down here with a ton of runes unless you plan on coming back to pick them up because you will lose your runes. So there's a warning for you right there, and then you're going to get eaten by this abductor here, which is going to take you to Volcano Manor and an easy way to get to the Blasphemous Blade. And then you're not going to take the intended pathway. Instead, you're going to follow me on screen. We're going to end up taking a huge drop off. It's going to do some damage to us, and we're going to have to get out of the fire part. But as long as you follow me, we're going to continue in the direction of Rykard and the Blasphemous Blade. And after you make this jump, follow me on screen. We're going to continue up towards the Godskin boss, and then after that, we'll be heading to Rykard, where you can net the Blasphemous Blade. You do have to fight one boss in between. You could use sleeping pots on them. That helps immensely with this fight. You have to take two of these cage-type elevators up, the first one and then the next one, and then we're going to be right there in front of the Godskin boss. This is kind of a short trick. A lot of people know how to go this way, but if you don't know how to go this way, it's definitely the easiest method to getting the Blasphemous Blade. I do recommend for most players to be a minimum of level 50 when they attempt this. I know by the time they get to Rhea Lucaria, they may be around level 40 or so. You probably should have at least 25 vigor to take on this boss. If you use sleeping pots, you can make it easier. He's also weak to slash and bleed. And I'm on New Game Plus 7, but of course I'm at rune level 150 here. This is going to be relatively easy. He's decently fire resistant, so I ended up switching to Ancient Dragon Lightning Strike, and it took a total of 2 casts to take down the Godskin Noble. Not too bad at all. The first cast did 10,000 damage, the second cast did 8,000, and the Godskin Noble goes down. And then we're going to move on from here and head towards Rykard to show you where to grab the powerful and one of the best weapons in the game, the Blasphemous Blade. Yeah, truly an incredible weapon. We're going to go up this elevator and continue to follow me. We're going to head towards the portal that takes you to Rykard. I'm not going to fight Rykard in this video because this video is long enough, but I'm going to show you how to get to his fog gate, and of course you can use the Serpent Hunter on him for an easy fight. And once you beat Rykard, you could take his remembrance back to the Round Table Hold to net yourself the Blasphemous Blade. If you're wondering why the Blasphemous Blade was number 3 in this video, I actually have Mohgwyn's at number 2, and of course number 1 is going to be, I believe, the best build for DLC. It's all about going into DLC. Yeah, noting there may be a couple fire-resistant bosses in DLC based on the trailer, I want to be realistic about it, but that being said, even for most of the mobs we're probably going to run into DLC, the Blasphemous Blade is going to be a great weapon for that, and Faith is very versatile as a whole. Alright, keep following me, and I bet this is going to give some people memories of farming the magma blades. That's so much fun. That's where you farm them. They have one of the lowest drop rates in the game. It's a very, very, very difficult farm, that's for sure. A lot of people have taken hours to get those, but they are really cool weapons. Are they worth the farm for? I don't know. That's debatable. I think personally they are. It took me 4 hours to get 2, but then someone told me one time that it took them 10 hours to get 2, and I'm not sure if that's worth farming any item because that's a lot of time. Keep following me. We're close to the portal to get to Rykard. Rykard's a gimmick boss fight too. By the way, if you grab Mimic and then you give him the Serpent Hunter also, it makes the fight even easier. It's really a very simple fight with Mimic and the Serpent Hunter. It can make it go very fast at pretty much any level, and you don't really need any stats or anything to use the Serpent Hunter. And here we go. Here's the portal up ahead. This is going to take us to Rykard, and once we're at Rykard, again, I'm not going to do the boss fight for the purpose of this video. You're just going to grab the Serpent Hunter inside. You can upgrade it. You can let him kill you, upgrade the Serpent Hunter, and can go back with Mimic for an even easier fight. It's really very easy. And then once you beat him, take his remembrance to the Round Table Hold, and you'll net yourself the Blasphemous Blade. And at number 2, we have Mohgwyn's Sacred Spear, one of the most broken weapons in Elden Ring. Now, I thought about doing jump attack bleed builds, but lately I've been getting a ton of damage out of Mohgwyn's Sacred Spear. And yes, it does do fire damage, but it also does immense bleed damage, and overall, it's probably one of the most broken somber weapons in the game. So how can I not recommend this weapon for DLC? It's going to be one of those weapons where most of the boss fights, even the amount of bleed damage some of the fire-resistant bosses, you're still able to get good damage out of Mohgwyn's for the most part because it procs bleed so quickly too on the Ash of War Blood Boon Ritual. It's ridiculous. It can even go through walls. It's an awesome weapon. If you never tried out Mohgwyn's Sacred Spear, now's the time to try this awesome weapon. Does a ton of fire and bleed damage. We have Mohgwyn's Sacred Spear plus 10. You can use the Dragon Communion Seal for good scaling. We have the White Mask. We hit 51 poise. We have the Fire Scorpion Charm, Shard of Alexander, Lord of Blood's Exultation, Ritual Swords Talisman, Flame Tier, call it the Fire Tier, Faith Tier for buffs. Let's jump into stats for this build. And for stats, this is kind of a strength and arcane build, but keep in mind the Ash of War, the fire damage, and the bleed is going to scale with arcane. So if you're mainly using the Ash, you could just pump up arcane. We have 45 strength with the 1.5 times bonus, 55 arcane, and we're using Golden Vow and Flame Grimmage strength. And where do you get Mohgwyn's Sacred Spear? Well, you get it in Mohgwyn's Palace. I'll show on the map where it is at the end. We're going to take on Mohg real quick. We're going to use Spinning Strikes. You could use Spinning Strikes or any Bloodflame weapon to get a ton of bleed build up. He's weak to bleed, and he's actually decently weak to slash damage. Actually, he's weak to a lot of physical damage as well, so we're going to get some good build up here, take down Mohg, and then show you where to get his Remembrance. A lot of people think you can only use the Shackle once, but in Phase 1 you can actually use the Shackle twice. You can't use it in Phase 2 at all, but if you time it right in Phase 1, especially if you're using something like Bleed, you could stop him from getting to Phase 2. And you can end up getting Mohgwyn's Sacred Spear. If you use the Shackle even at lower levels and you have a good weapon with Bloodflame, you get so much bleed build up and damage that you could take him down. A lot of times he'll even have maybe a little bit of health in Phase 2 or no Phase 2 at all. Here it is on the map here in Mohgwyn's Palace. Mohg Shackle, by the way, is found near where you find Lord of Blood's Exultation beneath the capital. And at number 1, my absolute favorite build to take into DLC, because mages are pretty much overpowered all the time, and they're so good across all the Souls games, including Elden Ring, I'm going to put number 1 at Night Comet as probably the easiest and safest bet to go into DLC with. Yeah, Night Comet being pure magic damage, being chargeable, the ridiculous amount of range it has, and how easy it is to just run through the game with Night Comet makes me think that for DLC it will also be an excellent build. I'm going to show you where to get everything for this build and all the other builds soon. After these clips are done, the top 6, and we go over the basics. As mentioned earlier, we're going to do the talismans in alphabetical order, the buffs, and everything else you need to know to make any of these builds, and in some cases if you want to grab everything so you have a lot of versatility. I truly cannot wait until DLC. It's going to be so much fun. I'm so excited about it. It's, what, 2-3 months away now. It's in June. Cannot wait for that. It's going to be well worth the money, the asking price. I have no doubt about it. It's going to be really fun to see how some of these builds hold up, and I think Night Comet will be one of them. And down goes Beast Clergyman and Malekith. We're going to go over the build, equipment, everything you need to know, and then we're going to talk about where to find the Staff of Loss, where to find Night Comet, the Jellyfish Shield, Terra Magika, and then everything else you need to make the 6 top builds that I picked for this video. I did a lot of thinking about these builds and ended up going with kind of one for each damage type. We have Staff of Loss, we have the Jellyfish Shield, any seal for buffs. We have 51 poise, Magic Scorpion Charm, Godfrey Icon, Graven Mass Talisman, Ritual Swords Talisman, Magic Tear, Faith Tier. Let's jump into stats for this one. Alright, now we're going to be jumping into stats. We have 50 Vigor, 70 Intelligence, 33 Faith with the Faith Tier, so we could do a bunch of buffs. We have 20 Strength for the Jellyfish Shield. We're using Golden Vow, Howl of Shabriri, Night Comet, and Terra Magika to buff the damage a lot. Now, where to get the Staff of Loss? You can get the Staff of Loss in Caelid, right here in Caelid in Sellia, Town of Sorcery, and it's going to be dropped down from this roof. You're going to grab it and get yourself the Staff of Loss. Best staff for Night Comet, however, not a great staff for most other spells. The Night Comet itself location is once you light up the torches on top of the roofs, which you should do all 3 to unlock everything, you'll unlock this door, and you could follow me from the main grace to grab Night Comet. In my opinion, pretty much the most broken spell in all of Elden Ring. It's something you're going to want to have if you're a mage. If you're a mage, you definitely want to have the Staff of Loss and Night Comet for sure. Next up, I'll show you how to get the Jellyfish Shield. This is in Liurnia of the Lakes. This you can get very early and add immediately to your mage or incantation build, and when you use its Ash of War, you'll get 20% more damage. It's fantastic for sorceries and incantations. Next up here is Terra Magika. And you can check on the map right here, the Academy Crystal Cave is where you're going to go to get Terra Magika. Now for the guide part, I'm not going to talk over all of it, but I'm going to go over instructions for each one, and everything is going to be timestamped in the description below, including everything you need for each build. By the way, I mentioned this earlier, but the Shard of Alexander, Rodwing Sword Insignia, Millicent's Prosthesis, as well as the Magic Scorpion Charm, the quest for those, because they're a little bit longer, are all in the description. You can follow those accordingly to get yourself those talismans. As for all the other talismans, buffs, and everything you need for the builds, they're going to be in alphabetical order starting after Terra Magika. This is just how you finish the basics for the Night Comet build. Follow me through this cave, fight the Castilians, and grab Terra Magika. And don't forget, everything's timestamped too, and at the end we're going to do DLC prep. Some things you need to do before DLC that's going to be very good to do before DLC, and a couple things that are actually mandatory as well, so be sure to catch that later at the end of the video. The Blasphemous Blade, by the way, can knock down the Crystalians, but it doesn't do a ton of poise damage to them. Use charged attacks if you want to speed this up a little bit and make it go quicker, or anything heavy. The Glint Blades work too. That Ash of War or Square Off is also great. And once you're done, you're going to go through this fog door that will open up, and you're going to take this elevator all the way up to grab Terra Magika, which will boost your magic damage by 35% as long as you're standing in it. And before we do the talismans in alphabetical order, I'm going to show you how to get the white mask. It's in Mohgwyn's palace. You have to fight 3 of these guys. There's only one that drops it. I'll show on the map where this drops, and this is how you net yourself the white mask. 10% more damage with blood loss in the vicinity. And next up are the talismans in alphabetical order. Aside from the ones that are quest related in the description below, we're going to start by showing you where to grab Erdtree's favorite +2, a fantastic talisman, particularly for the endgame. You do not have to fight the mini-bosses here. You can sneak around them by crouch walking around the left wall, going up to grab Erdtree's favorite +2, and then fast traveling out. And next up is the Fire Scorpion Charm. Excellent for fire builds, including the Blasphemous Blade build and Mohgwyn's Sacred Spear. You get this in Mount Gelmor at the first fort you'll run across. There it is on the map there. And for the Godfrey Icon, you're going to go to the Erdtree Gazing Hillside of Grace in the Altless Plateau. You're going to be going to the Golden Lineage Everjail. Follow me on screen to get there. I'm not going to fight the boss in this video, but you have to defeat this boss and you need a stone sword key. He will drop the Godfrey Icon. Next up is the Graven Mass Talisman in Consecrated Snowfield. Here it is on the map there. And with the Fanged Imp summons, which you can get from the merchant at Rhea Lucaria dungeon, you can use this trick to open the door. As long as they hit them and then you hit them after, the door will open. They don't even need to be upgraded. They just have to hit the enemy once, and then afterwards you take them out and the door will open. It works the same way. I think you can actually get them to hit each other too, but that's a little bit more difficult. But the summon's a little bit easier to do. The door will open and you'll climb up the ladder to grab it. And for the green turtle talisman location, this is an easy one to grab in Limgrave at Summonwater Village, and you can follow me on screen to grab it. You need a stone sword key, go past the turtles, and grab the green turtle talisman. And now for Lord of Blood's Exultation. Now, I was at Ashen Capital, but I'm going to explain real quick how to get there if you're not at Ashen Capital. This is where it is on the map. You can get to the well, though, from the Avenue Balcony site of Grace, where the knights are. You make a left, facing the knights, jump over the side, and there'll be a well you can jump down. It's really not that bad to get to, and it brings you to the same exact place where we'll end up grabbing this first site of Grace, and then you can follow me on screen as I'm going to show you the whole way to getting Lord of Blood's Exultation. Be careful in this next part, by the way, as some of the enemies here can do a lot of damage to you regardless of what new game you're on. Keep following me. I did manage to run past them. If you want to fight them, that's up to you, and we're going to be dropping down to the lower level. And in a second, we're going to be in front of the door. That's the boss door that drops Lord of Blood's Exultation. I think there's a minor editing mistake here. End up going back like half a second. But yeah, here we are at the door. That's the door we need to unlock. Keep following me. We're going to go around and find the switch for that door. When you drop down to where that Grave Glovewort is, the one direction is going to take you to a dead end. It's the opposite direction. So if you happen to go the wrong way, no big deal. I did initially. I had to edit it out. It's kind of a dead end anyway. You go the other way in the opposite direction, and you're going to jump up this flame pillar and continue on. And the boss has 2 dogs, so be sure to take those out first, but he will drop Lord of Blood's Exultation, and it's a little bit difficult of a talisman to get, but once you have it, keep in mind it does carry over to New Game Plus. Next up here is the Ritual Shield Talisman at the Coliseum in the capital. A very good talisman to have when you're at full HP, and it can combine with the Ritual Swords Talisman, so you have an increase in attack as well as an increase in defense when you're at full HP. Very solid talisman. And now for the Ritual Swords Talisman. More generic damage at full HP. Goes well with Ritual Shield Talisman. And that is where it is at the map there. It's above the Erdtree Gazing Hillside of Grace at Lux Ruins. And now we're on the buffs. This will cover all the buffs that I use. I kind of count Bloodflame Blade as a buff because it's kind of a weapon buff even though it's an incantation, but this is where it's at in Liurny of the Lakes by Rose Church. And Flame Grant Me Strength is at Fort Gale, which is just to the right of Rotview Balcony Site of Grace, the first Site of Grace in Caelid. Follow me on screen. The item that you'll see at the end is going to be Flame Grant Me Strength. That's in between the two fire carriages. And Golden Vow, one of my favorite incantations and probably my favorite buff in Elden Ring, giving you 15% more attack and defense for a very long time, around 2 minutes. Follow me on screen. You're going to keep going past the Ulcerated Tree Spirit to grab Golden Vow. If you can't find this area, when you go outside of Volcano Manor, it's to the left. You're going to keep going down around the cliff and you'll get directly where I'm at and then can follow me from there to grab Golden Vow. And now we're on to Howl of Shabriri, which is found in Liurny of the Lakes. Keep in mind you take damage going up to this tower area and have to take the enemies out at the top, and then it's going to be in a chest here, and that's 25% generic damage, pretty much all damage, for around 40 seconds. And now we're on to tiers. First up first is the tier that I use in pretty much every build that's not faith related, and sometimes even one for the faith builds, which is kind of weird, the opposite of how you would think it, but I use it a lot for buffs, and that's the faith tier, which is in the Weeping Peninsula. And this is the tree avatar in Caelid. It's the first one in Caelid that will net you the Flame tier and the Greenburst Crystal tier, which increases stamina regen. I like both of these and recommend grabbing both. And the Magic tier is another tree avatar fight, and this is in Liurny of the Lakes, and that's the second tree in Liurny of the Lakes. You're going to want to grab this one because it also has the Holy and Lightning tier. And if you want the stance breaking tier, I didn't use it for this video, but it's fantastic for strength builds. This is going to be the second tree avatar in Keylid, and as with all these clips, I'll show the map afterwards. You're going to want to grab this one though if you're into poise breaking builds. And the Thorny Tear location is at the Tree and Consecrated Snowfield, and this is going to be a great one for all your jump attack bleed builds, double slash, and anything fast. I hope that quick guide for the items helped. By the way, the quest ones, I mentioned this earlier, they're in the description below. Things to do before DLC. You want to get all golden seeds and sacred tears. Stack up on stone sword keys just in case. Get all smithing stone bell bearings. Stack up on larval tears. There's 18 per playthrough. Things you must do. You have to beat Radahn to get into DLC. You have to beat Mohg to get into DLC. We know that now. Very likely you should have beaten most main game bosses, and my recommendation is to be at least around rune level 110 to 125 for the DLC. Other things to do, grab summons and glovewort bell bearings, grab the Blasphemous Blade or Sacred Relic Sword for easy mob control, grab materials for things like Sleeping Pots and Blood Boil Aromatic. I would recommend getting all the buffs in this video, they're going to help you out a lot. Get the Shard of Alexander and do Ranni's quest for the Darkmoon Greatsword, get Rotten Wing Sword Insignia or Millicent's Prosthesis, get Lord of Blood's Exultation and the White Mask. Yeah, bleed can end up being really broken in DLC too, so those are good to have. Final notes and recommendations. DLC is going to be hard. Know this before going into DLC. Patience, much like the base game, is key. Grab the materials for these builds and have variety heading into DLC. Keep in mind Faith has 3 elemental damage types that can help out a lot. Grab several good tiers and talismans, and if you want to learn how to make builds, check out my crafting build series. It's been awesome. A lot of good feedback on those. Join the Discord as many people are in there to help. Most importantly, have fun and play your own way. Do whatever is most fun, something I always say in my videos. A quick clip here on something that can help with Mohgwyn's Sacred Spear. Yeah, I was looking for different weapons that are really good for taking down the walking mausoleums, and apparently Mohgwyn's Sacred Spear is excellent at it. If you're close enough, you can at least get, most of the time, 2 sides, and if you go around each one about 4 or 5 times in total using the Ash of War, you'll be able to take them down. A nice way to take them down if you're looking to duplicate your remembrances so you can get both things for the remembrances. You can do it very quickly with Mohgwyn's Sacred Spear. Thanks for watching this one. I appreciate everybody that's tuned into this video. I know it was a little bit on the longer side. Definitely be sure to sub if this helped. The Shard of Alexander and Millicent's Prosthesis or Rotten Wing Sword Insignia, as well as the Magic Scorpion Charm, all larval tier locations, and a general talisman guide are all in the description below that has some extra good talismans in it as well. Yeah, those extra guides can help you with some stuff that wasn't covered in this video. I will catch everybody soon, and as always, thanks for watching.